Get ready, because today we're going to talk about how ineffective conflict can ruin your stories. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Story Made Simple, and welcome to my writing channel. Last week I did a video on writing the middle of your stories, the midsection, the second act, whatever you want to call it. And one of my subscribers requested that I do a follow-up video on the topic of conflict. And the timing for this couldn't have been better because I've been rewatching all the Batman movies recently, and I just got done with the disaster piece known as Batman and Robin. Now, I don't know if you've seen this or if you've seen it recently, but this movie, there should be laws against movies like this. This thing commits every possible crime against storytelling there is, and especially crimes against conflict and what makes for good, effective conflict. So we're going to look at this one today, but first we're going to discuss the purpose of conflict and 4 things that make it effective. Let's start off by answering the question, what is conflict? And very simply, conflict is a struggle between 2 sides. If 2 people want the same thing and only one can have it, there will be conflict. If 2 sides disagree about a decision they have to make, there will be conflict. And if one person wants something and another wants to stop them from getting it, there will be conflict. In my book, I talk about how a story's plot is like a fire, and conflict is the fuel that keeps that fire burning. In other words, if you want your plot to last for an extended period of time, you need to keep throwing conflict on it. But here's where it gets tricky, because conflict only works when it fits a given story and the scenarios within that story. And that brings us to our next question, which is what makes for effective conflict? I came up with 4 things. First thing is that conflict is balanced. What we mean by balanced is that the outcome isn't 100% lopsided. There has to be a chance for both sides to succeed. We need to keep the outcome in doubt. We also need characters to act to the best of their ability. If they hold back for no good reason, that sucks. But if they use their strengths, and they use those strengths to overcome their opponents or to pressure their opponents, and then the opponents do the same thing in return, we engage with the story. For example, in Jurassic Park, when the T-Rex breaks loose, it wants to eat the kids, and Alan Grant wants to save the kids. This is effective conflict because both the T-Rex and Alan have a chance of getting what they want. The T-Rex uses its deadly strength while Alan uses his knowledge of dinosaurs, and the scene engages us and keeps us in suspense until we get an outcome. Second thing that makes for effective conflict is that it's well paced. And the idea here is that your conflict should follow an appropriate time schedule. A schoolyard fight shouldn't last 5 hours, and likewise, carrying out a plan to conquer the universe shouldn't last only 5 minutes. Measure out your conflict and always make sure that it has enough time to breathe. And this might require you to add on some extra obstacles for your heroes to overcome, or even adding obstacles for your villains to overcome in order to pace things out. For example, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, both Indiana Jones and his rival Belloc are racing to locate the Ark. If they knew where to look from the get-go, that would be no fun. So instead, they need to decipher the markings on a special headpiece in order to find the Ark. Indy's ex-girlfriend Marion has the headpiece, and one of Belloc's friends has half of the markings, but they both need a special translator to nail down the location. This not only spaces out the conflict, but it also adds more emotional weight to the overall journey. Third thing effective conflict does, it creates appropriate reactions, ones that are honest and logical. And this is important. How characters respond to conflict is critical. If characters react appropriately, we take them seriously. And as they continue to engage with conflict, we take the story seriously. One mistake that a lot of newer writers make is that they create reactions that are either over the top or unnecessary or puzzling, and they do this in order to steer the plot in a certain direction. And the thing is, if you're forcing the plot in a certain direction, it's not going to work. That's why you want to create characters who react realistically in order to drive the plot where you want it. For example, in Good Will Hunting, when Will insults Sean's late wife, Sean reacts by grabbing Will by the throat and threatening him. It's an appropriate knee-jerk reaction, but the reaction doesn't stop there. Later, Sean reflects on the event and recognizes Will's potential to put his brilliant mind to good use. This compels Sean to serve as Will's therapist and engage in conflict with him for the rest of the story. Finally, the 4th thing that effective conflict does, it leads to meaningful consequences. As characters struggle, they make choices that lead to more conflict. And as we create more and more, we want to be raising the stakes throughout the story. We want to give characters more to gain and more to lose. For example, in The Dark Knight, Batman seeks to shut down the mob, which causes the mob to turn to the Joker for help, which causes the Joker to attack and manipulate Batman, which causes Batman to make various sacrifices in order to stop the Joker. This allows the central plot to keep burning for 2.5 hours until the conflict is resolved. Now that'll be the last positive thing I have to say about Batman in this video, because now we're going to turn our attention toward the 1997 movie Batman and Robin. This movie is worse than its reputation would indicate, and believe it or not, the main problem isn't Mr. Freeze's horrendous puns.
Alright everyone, chill, cool party. Hell, freeze is over. Let's kick some ice.
The worst problem with this movie is that the central conflict is all around terrible. There is nothing holding this movie together in a meaningful way. The plot fire doesn't burn because the script doesn't know where to throw the fuel. And in the end, we're left with 2 straight hours of empty storytelling. Just so we're all on the same page, this is the one where Mr. Freeze goes around stealing diamonds, which are the only thing that can power his suit. He needs the suit so he can stay alive and cure his wife's terminal illness. Then there's Poison Ivy, who becomes a villain as a result of a bizarre transformation. Then there's Bane, who becomes a villain as a result of a bizarre transformation. Then we learn that Mr. Freeze himself became a villain as a result of a bizarre transformation. This is unfortunately how the movie works. Convenient things happen, and people become evil so the plot can plot. In other bad news, Alfred is dying of a terminal illness, and it's the same illness that Freeze's wife has. Alfred needs money for treatments, but he doesn't ask the richest man in the world for help. Instead, Alfred's niece Barbara arrives at Wayne Manor, and she participates in street races to earn money for her uncle. Speaking of money, Batman and Robin get into a bidding war after Poison Ivy blows magic dust in their faces. Keep that in mind for later because the script can't function without this stuff. Anyway, after Batman captures Freeze and sends him to Arkham, Poison Ivy decides to rescue Freeze so they can team up. Ivy then pulls the plug on Freeze's wife to manipulate him into destroying the world. The plan is to cause another ice age, then cover the world in plants, or something like that, I don't care. Meanwhile, Robin decides he wants to bang Ivy, and Ivy decides she wants to kill him with a kiss. She lures him back to her place, and the kiss happens, but luckily he wore his rubber lips. Somehow, Ivy doesn't kiss him after he removes them, and she instead shoves him underwater, then she wraps up Batman in some vines before heading off to destroy the world. But that's when Batgirl arrives and says, "Roar, I'm a better woman than you," and she kicks Ivy's ass until one of Ivy's plants eats her. The movie then concludes with our heroes defeating Mr. Freeze and Mr. Bane in a goofy action sequence that ends with Batman taking out his iPhone to show Freeze that Ivy pulled the plug on his wife. Finally, we learn that Freeze's wife is okay, Alfred will survive, and there won't be another Batman movie for 8 years. Now, I could go scene by scene telling you where this movie went wrong in terms of its conflict, but we'll keep things brief and focus on the 4 things we discussed earlier in the video. First of all, the conflict suffers from a lack of balance throughout the movie. Mr. Freeze is super powerful, and he could easily kill Batman and Robin 15 minutes into the movie, but instead of doing so, he holds back. And here's his reasoning.
I'll kill you next time!
This sucks because Freeze is not acting to the best of his ability. He's not challenging Batman to overcome an obstacle, he's just letting Batman live so the plot can plot. Then throughout the movie, Poison Ivy blows her magic dust in everyone's faces so she can either control them or kill them. It's a powerful tool and it never fails until, well, Batman needs to be in control. Then all of a sudden he develops an immunity to it, probably because he's dating Elle Macpherson, and then Robin, of course, he manages to hold back at the last second whenever he's about to be killed. So essentially the magic dust is super powerful until the script doesn't want it to be. Our second issue has to do with the conflict's pacing. Early on in the movie, Freeze and Ivy are both trying to conduct their respective research. He wants to save his wife, she wants to help the environment. And so far, so good. Then, midway through the movie, after Freeze learns that his wife is allegedly dead, he instantly decides to destroy the world. Like, there's no time for his feelings to develop. He mourns his wife for 5 seconds, and then he's like, yeah, I'm upset my wife's dead, I'm gonna kill Batman, and you know what, I might as well destroy the entire world while I'm at it. And this could have been interesting if Freeze initially wanted revenge, and then while pursuing revenge and maybe struggling to achieve it, his grief continues to eat away at him until he decides to just make the whole world suffer. That could have helped, but instead we jump straight to worldwide destruction and nobody cares. Third issue is the lack of appropriate reactions. There's a lot of this going on throughout the film, but the worst one is the rubber lips scene. Here you have a scenario where Ivy wants to kill Robin, but it doesn't work, and instead of just kissing him again or choking him with her vines, she pushes him into the water where he's much safer. Then she just walks away. Like, think about this. She wants to kill him, and he's in a room full of deadly plants that she controls, but instead of reacting to the rubber lips routine in an appropriate way that is consistent with her goals and motivations, instead of doing that, she does the complete opposite and lets him live. She helps him live, and that only makes our heroes look weak and stupid. Finally, our fourth issue is that the conflict often fails to create meaningful consequences. We see this especially in the Alfred subplot. He's dying of a mysterious disease, but instead of mentioning this to the richest, most powerful man in the world and triggering a compelling subplot for Batman to race to find a cure, instead of doing this, Alfred just stays quiet while his niece randomly appears to earn money for him. Not only is this silly, but it's a blown opportunity to intensify the central conflict and raise the stakes. If Batman had known about Alfred's illness early on, there would have been more at stake other than protecting diamonds. Imagine if Batman was seeking Mr. Freeze's help and trying to cut a deal with him, only for Ivy to step in and sabotage Batman's plan by framing him for killing Freeze's wife. That could have escalated the conflict while drawing a meaningful connection between the hero and villains. But instead, we don't get any of that, because the script prioritizes ice puns, sex ed, and credit cards over actual storytelling. So I hope this helps. Question of the day: what is the worst example of conflict that you've ever come across in a story? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching. If you want to support the channel, please pick up a copy of any one of my books and be sure to leave reviews on Amazon. Story Made Simple is great if you're a writer. It covers the 8 key elements of storytelling, and it does so in no-nonsense fashion. Also, be sure to check out my other videos. Like, share, and subscribe. Maybe support me on Patreon. And as always, remember to keep on writing.